When my manager called me into his office that morning, I already had a strange feeling in my gut. I'm Jeff, 52 years old, and until that day, I'd been the warehouse supervisor at Brantley Logistics in Toledo, Ohio. I'd spent the last 22 years walking those same aisles, organizing freight schedules, training new hires, and keeping the chaos in check. I knew the job like the back of my hand. Maybe that was the problem. I made it look too easy. The office was too quiet when I stepped in. Kevin, my manager, sat with his hands folded, eyes darting between me and a bland-looking woman from HR. I'd never seen her before. "Jeff, thanks for coming in," Kevin started, and right then I knew. He had that rehearsed tone, the one we used when letting temps go after peak season. "We've been reviewing budgets, and unfortunately, your position is being eliminated," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Excuse me?" I asked, genuinely stunned. After 2 decades, the HR rep jumped in like she'd been waiting for her cue. "This isn't a reflection of your performance. It's strictly financial. You'll receive a severance package and outplacement support." I barely heard the rest. My ears were ringing. I looked at Kevin. "Financial? You just approved a new forklift lease last month." He cleared his throat. "Corporate's been tightening things. Nothing personal, Jeff." But it was personal. You don't just cut someone who's been your foundation through every supply chain disaster for over 20 years. I left that office with a folder in my hand and a pit in my chest. No farewell from the crew, no thank you. Just a cold goodbye and a security guard escorting me to the door. I didn't say a word on the way out, didn't ask questions. But as I stepped into my car and looked back at the building where I'd spent nearly half my life, something inside me hardened. They thought I'd disappear quietly. They thought wrong. 3 days after I was let go, I got a text from Ricky, one of the forklift operators I'd trained myself. It was short. "You won't believe who's got your job." I called him right away. He didn't waste time. "Dude, it's the owner's nephew, kid's like 24. Walked in Monday morning like he owns the place." I didn't say much, just nodded to myself and thanked him for letting me know. That night, I went online and started digging. Didn't take long to find him. Lucas Harding. His LinkedIn said Operations Specialist, Brantley Logistics. No mention of experience, certifications, or even a degree. Just a cheesy grin and a tagline that read, "Ready to lead." I felt something between disbelief and rage. I hadn't been cut for budget. I'd been replaced by someone who probably couldn't tell a pallet jack from a scissor lift. But I didn't rant on Facebook, didn't call anyone at the company to complain. Instead, I started making notes. Over the next week, I heard from 3 other guys on the floor. Each one told me the same thing. Lucas was clueless, messed up inventory logs, had no idea how to route inbound shipments, and worse, he was arrogant about it. "He told me to load the hazmat shipment in Bay 3, Ricky said on the phone. "That bay's not even certified." I opened a blank document on my computer, titled it Lucas, Week 1. Then I started typing. I wasn't sure what I was building yet, but I knew this. I hadn't trained a dozen men, streamlined a broken system, and held that place together through 2 mergers just to be tossed aside like expired milk. Lucas might have taken my title, but he hadn't taken my knowledge. And that knowledge, I realized, was my new weapon. So I kept listening, and every time someone called me with a new story, I wrote it down. Dates, times, names. The guy who replaced me didn't know what he was doing, but I did. I started every morning the same way. Coffee, emails, and then a quiet scan of social media. Lucas wasn't subtle. He'd post pictures from the loading dock with captions like, "Another day making moves" or "Logistics life." I saved each one, not because I cared, but because the background told a different story. Pallets stacked too high, forklifts parked in fire lanes, no one wearing safety gear. Every detail mattered. I created a burner Gmail account and used it to message a few old co-workers who still trusted me. I never asked them to do anything illegal, just to keep me in the loop. If something looked off, take a picture, send it my way, keep it quiet. One guy, Tony, sent me a blurry photo of a shattered pallet on the warehouse floor. "Dropped from the top rack," he wrote. "Lucas made us clean it up before anyone saw." I saved it to a new folder, Unsafe Conditions. By the end of that week, I had 24 images, a spreadsheet of missed shipment logs, and a detailed list of protocol violations, all dated, time-stamped, and annotated. But I wasn't collecting this for revenge. Not yet. I wanted to understand exactly how deep the negligence went, and more importantly, how far management was willing to let it go to protect the owner's nephew. It became a daily ritual. I'd check in with the team, compile new data, and archive everything. I even started researching OSHA regulations, matching each infraction to the code it violated. Lucas, meanwhile, seemed to believe he was untouchable. He hosted a pizza party on the dock. No gloves, no masks, just greasy hands and cardboard boxes. I got 5 photos from that afternoon. One of them clearly showed a hazardous material barrel in the background. Unsealed, it was all adding up. And while Lucas thought he was building his reputation, I was building a case. Not with anger, not with noise, just quiet, steady documentation. Because if they wanted to play games with people's safety and livelihoods, I was going to make sure someone was watching. It was mid-October when I got the call that changed everything. Ricky's voice was tense. "Jeff, we had an accident." My stomach dropped. One of the temps, Marcus, took a fall from the second-tier rack. Lucas told him to retrieve a crate solo. No spotter, no harness. I closed my eyes. "Is he okay?" "Bruised ribs, maybe a concussion." They made him sign a waiver before he left. I felt heat rise in my chest. This wasn't just about me anymore. Someone got hurt because Lucas didn't know what he was doing, or worse, didn't care. That same day, Tony sent me a photo from the security cam monitor. Grainy but clear enough. Marcus climbing the rack, unassisted, time-stamped. I added it to the folder, now titled Brantley Safety Violations. I didn't call the company. I didn't threaten anyone. I kept doing what I'd been doing, quietly collecting, organizing, documenting, but something shifted in me. I started cross-referencing every incident with OSHA's online database. I built a master file, each violation linked to the corresponding code, the potential fine, and the recommended correction. It read like a prosecution script, and the deeper I dug, the more I found. Lucas had implemented a new shift system that left entire sections of the warehouse unsupervised at night. I got voice messages from night crew complaining about blacked-out zones, broken floor tiles, and unreported injuries. One message stuck with me. "Man, this place used to run like a machine. Now it's just chaos." I stared at my screen for a long time after that. This wasn't a vendetta anymore. It was a responsibility. If they were going to gamble with people's lives just to protect a bloodline, then someone had to call them out, and I was getting close. The final piece I needed was confirmation of how management responded to the accident. If they buried it, and I was almost certain they did, I'd have everything I needed. I waited, watched, and kept updating my files. Lucas might have been playing supervisor, but I was playing something bigger. The day I sent the file, I wore gloves, not because I needed to, but because it felt like the kind of thing that required precision, finality, clean hands. The email went out at 9:47 a.m. from a library computer 15 miles from my house. I used the burner account and addressed it to OSHA's regional office in Cleveland. Subject line, "Urgent Workplace Safety Violations at Brantley Logistics, Toledo." I attached a zip file labeled Evidence. Inside, 63 photographs, 10 video clips, a master spreadsheet, and a summary document outlining each violation, the dates and potential risks to employee safety. The tone was calm, professional. I didn't rant or accuse anyone by name. I simply presented what I had, a timeline of negligence. At the bottom, I wrote, "I wish to remain anonymous. I am a former employee with first-hand knowledge of operations at this facility. Please investigate before someone gets seriously hurt." Then I walked out, tossed the flash drive into a drainage grate near the parking lot, and went home. I didn't expect a reply. Government agencies don't send thank you notes. But I felt something settle inside me, a strange, cold sense of control. Back at my desk, I reopened my files. I kept working, updating just in case. The next week, Ricky texted me again. Lucas had a meeting with corporate, looked spooked. A few days later, I heard they postponed all weekend shifts. Then came the mandatory safety refresher sessions. Flyers were posted, emails sent out. Something was moving. I didn't call attention to myself. I didn't talk about it with anyone, not even my wife. I just kept watching, listening. They had no idea who was behind it, and that was the beauty of it. Because the truth is, silence is power. While Lucas was still strutting around the warehouse, handing out pizza slices and pretending to be in charge, the countdown had already started. They just didn't know it yet. It was a Tuesday morning when the inspectors arrived. They came in quietly, two of them dressed in business casual, holding clipboards and ID badges. No announcements, no warning, just walked through the front entrance like they belonged there. By noon, my phone lit up. "Jeff," Ricky said, whispering. "OSHA's here right now, they're walking the floor." I didn't say anything, just let him talk. "They've already pulled Lucas into the office. Tony said they asked for the last 3 months of safety reports. You know, the ones he's been faking." I opened my laptop and stared at the folder I'd built. Every report they'd asked for, every lie Lucas had written, was already backed by a photo proving the opposite. By 2 p.m., I got another message. "Dude, they shut down Bay 4. Said it's a hazard." I pictured it clearly. Water damage on the ceiling, cracked floor tile near the loading dock, exposed wires near the circuit panel. I documented all of it. And now someone with authority was seeing it in person. I imagined Lucas trying to explain it away. His half smile, the kind he wore when he didn't know the answer, but thought charm could carry him through. That smile wouldn't last under federal scrutiny. The inspection lasted 3 days. They combed through schedules, walked every bay, interviewed staff. They weren't looking for accidents, they were looking for patterns. I kept getting updates through my silent network. One guy told me Lucas tried to shift blame to a floor supervisor who'd only been there 6 weeks. He told the inspector that Danny was responsible for dock safety, he said. But Danny doesn't even have clearance to sign off on shipments. I didn't laugh. I just took a breath and leaned back in my chair. Everything was happening without me lifting a finger now. I'd spent weeks gathering truth, quietly, carefully, and now that truth was standing in the warehouse with a badge and a clipboard. They were finally seeing what I'd been seeing all along. And Lucas? He was finally being seen for what he really was. By the 4th day of the inspection, the warehouse no longer felt like Lucas's kingdom. I got a call from one of the night shift guys, Paul. Quiet guy, didn't talk much before, but now he had a lot to say. "They pulled me into the break room for questioning," he said. "Asked about the incident with Marcus, asked if I ever felt unsafe. I asked him what he said. I told the truth. Said things changed after Jeff left. Said Lucas cut corners. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about documents and photos anymore. It was becoming a story, one told by real people, not just data. Multiple employees gave statements. Some were nervous, others relieved. One guy, Jamal, confessed that Lucas told him to fake a training log, said he was afraid to lose his job if he didn't go along. And Lucas? He was unraveling. Tony told me Lucas tried to hold a team huddle that afternoon, tried to rally the staff, tell them everything was fine, but no one bought it. They just stared at him, Tony said. Didn't say a word. The tension in that warehouse must have been thick enough to choke on. Meanwhile, upper management was getting antsy. The owner, Mr. Harding, flew in from Denver. First time he'd been on site in years. Word was he met privately with the inspectors, spent 3 hours behind closed doors. When he came out, he didn't speak to the staff, didn't even look at Lucas, and that told me everything. Whatever faith he'd had in his nephew was cracking. The smooth, easy handoff of authority he'd envisioned had become a liability, a public one. The walls weren't just cracking, they were caving in, and I hadn't yelled, threatened, or raised a single fist. All I'd done was show the truth, piece by piece. Now, even the people who once stood silently beside Lucas were starting to back away. Because when you expose someone who built their power on lies, the collapse is always loud, even if the work that brought it down was silent. 3 weeks later, the hammer dropped. It started with a notice posted outside the main entrance. Due to ongoing regulatory review, operations will be temporarily suspended in bays 3, 4, and 5. That meant over half the warehouse was offline. Shipping delays, customer complaints, financial bleeding. Then came the fines. I heard the numbers through the grapevine, 6 figures at least. OSHA cited them for multiple violations: improper hazardous material storage, failure to maintain safety equipment, falsified training logs, and negligence leading to employee injury. Lucas was terminated within 48 hours. No send-off, no explanation. Just an escorted walk to his car with a box of his things. One of the guys said he didn't even argue, just kept his head down and walked. The company tried to control the damage, released a carefully worded statement to the staff about restructuring safety leadership and renewed operational focus. No one believed it, but the best part came later. I got a call from Darren, an old colleague who'd left Brantley years ago. He was now working at a competitor's firm across town, Midstate Freight. "You heard what happened?" he asked. I said I had. "We figured you did," he said with a laugh. "Look, we've been following the reports. We know someone tipped them off. We've got a consulting role open, safety oversight and logistics training. Interested?" I didn't answer right away. I just let the offer settle in. When I finally spoke, it was simple. "Yeah, I'm interested." No need for revenge speeches or self-righteous monologues, just a quiet step forward. Back at Brantley, word was the owner tried to bring back some of the old crew, a desperate move to salvage what remained. He even reached out to me through a mutual contact. No apology, just an offer. I declined, because I wasn't going back. I hadn't just exposed a fraud. I'd reminded them, and myself, who really kept that place standing all those years. And now, I didn't need their building anymore. I was building something better. Mid-State Freight didn't waste time. Within a week of that phone call, I was sitting in a glass-walled office across town, signing a consulting contract that paid better than my old supervisor salary ever did, and with less stress. They didn't just want my experience. They wanted the way I thought, the systems I built, the quiet discipline I used to hold chaos together without making a show of it. In the interview, Darren asked me, "Why didn't you go public with what happened?" I shrugged. Didn't need to. Truth works fine on its own. He nodded. Exactly the kind of mind we want. I spent my first month designing a new training program, one that didn't just check boxes but actually prepared people for the floor. I rewrote inspection protocols, introduced a digital log system for warehouse hazards, and met with team leads one-on-one to understand their gaps. There were no politics, no hidden agendas, just people doing the job and wanting to do it right. The warehouse ran smoother within weeks. The team respected me not because I barked orders, but because I listened, and because I knew exactly what could go wrong if the wrong people were in charge. I even got to reconnect with a few old co-workers who'd moved over from Brantley. We didn't talk about Lucas, we didn't need to. He was a footnote now. What mattered was that I was back on the floor, not to prove anything, but because I still cared about the work, the rhythm of it. The way a well-run dock could hum like a machine when everything clicked. I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I'd already had it, quietly, completely. Now I had something better. Respect, purpose, and a clean start. And best of all, I'd built it without sacrificing who I was. The best revenge isn't loud, it's being somewhere they can't touch you, doing what they said you couldn't. Sometimes I drive past the old warehouse on my way home. Not often, just every now and then. There's always a truck idling by the dock, some new faces in safety vests, a few signs still weathered from the old regime. But it doesn't feel like mine anymore. It doesn't feel like loss either. It just feels like the past. I don't stop. I don't look for familiar faces. I just nod to myself and keep driving, because I've moved on, not just physically, but in every way that matters. I didn't scream. I didn't post about my story online. I didn't try to burn the place down. I let the facts speak. Let time work. Let incompetence reveal itself. And when it did, I was ready. Lucas? I heard he moved back to Denver, tried to get a job in logistics somewhere else, but couldn't provide references. I don't take pleasure in that. Not really. But I also don't lose sleep over it. Some people learn, some don't. Me, I learned something too. That silence can be louder than rage. That holding your ground quietly can leave a deeper mark than any confrontation. And that dignity, once claimed, becomes a kind of armor no one can take from you. Now I end my days in a place where people actually ask for my opinion, where my experience is valued, not discarded for nepotism or convenience, where I walk through the warehouse and hear, "Hey Jeff, can you take a look at this?" Instead of pretending I'm invisible. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And I'll take honest over flashy any day. This isn't a story about revenge, really. It's a story about remembering who you are, even when others try to erase it. And in the end, the only thing louder than what they did to me was the way I walked away without saying a word.